Hi, it's Andy XL back with another NFXL podcast, and I'm back looking at the 2026 draft, which is my area of expertise for sure. I think all NFL things I'm pretty good at, but the NFL draft is certainly the thing that I would claim to be one of the best, if not the best, in terms of predicting what will happen come draft time. And in this one, these are the first of my October updates. So having seen the first month of the college season. And before the October action gets underway later today, I'm filming this on October the 4th. I'll give you an update on how the candidates in the quarterback class are doing so far this season. So, pre-season, I had a dozen quarterbacks listed, um, and as the most likely to get drafted in 2026. And there's three names that have jumped into my top 12 during September, so I'll give you a look at those. But there has been plenty of change in the first month of college season. You know, there were many saying this was a really good class, blah, 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 so many good top end candidates. But I really didn't see it that way. I saw it as candidates with plenty of potential, but an awful lot to prove. And I could see that there was going to be a lot of change going on as the season progressed. Um, and I didn't see the sort of top two or three, four as pretty much fixed in their places as might have happened in previous seasons. So there's been a lot of change. So let's have a look at where we stand now. So let's have a look at the guys that are potentially round one as I see it at the end of September. Excuse me. So number one on my list at the moment, and he was number five at the beginning of the season, is Lanoris Sellers, a sophomore at South Carolina. So he came in as a potential round one guy, but only fifth ranked, so probably towards the end of round one. Now I'd say he's kind of mid round one, possibly top half. He's off to a good start in 2025. His completion rate and passer rating are up on his good numbers of 2024, which was 65.6% completion rate, 151.9 rated. So he's improved on those. So he's doing pretty well. His TD and rushing numbers are down from the gaudy numbers he produced last season. That was 18 passing touchdowns and 674 rushing yards with 7 rushing touchdowns on the ground. So he did an awful lot in that regard last season. His numbers are down in that area, but up as a passer overall, I would say. Um, and he's on course to be one of, if not the first quarterbacks taken in the 2026 draft as it stands. Now, like I say, can be quite volatile. This you only need one or two indifferent or bad performances, and you can fall down lists. But Sellers is my number one at the moment. Now number two was number six last time. So again, like Sellers, he's climbed 4 places. That's Fernando Mendoza, junior at Indiana. To be honest, Mendoza was a bit off my radar pre-season, but with his strong start to 2025, made me go back and look at his highlights reel. And boy, is it impressive. He shows elite pocket presence and awareness and seems to work through his progressions really quickly and then fires darts all over the field from whether he's in the pocket or when rolling out either way. And that's something I tend to look at. Sometimes you look at these college quarterbacks and if they're forced out the pocket, they can get pretty inaccurate. And others, really, if they're forced left, they can't do it. If they're forced right, they can't do it. One or the other. They rarely can do it both ways, but he's showing that. He also showed abilities as a runner when flushed out of the pocket. If he continues to perform at the level he currently is, he looks a lock to be among the first quarterbacks taken in the 2026 draft. So, good months for Lenoris Sellers and Fernando Mendoza. Now comes the first newbie in this update, and that's Dante Moore, a sophomore at Oregon. Now, he was not on my original list, having been the backup at Oregon last season and after transferring from UCLA. But in his first 5 starts as the Oregon starter this season, he has been outstanding, and he really shone in a high-profile performance against Penn State. There's no doubt he's the current darling of the chat rooms following that game against Penn State, and has emerged as a leading candidate in this class. But now he's on the radar, he will need to continue to perform at a high level. That lack of experience, though, is something NFL scouts will certainly factor into their evaluation of him. So any bad games could hurt him more than other experienced starters in this class. And as such, and being a sophomore, might he stay in college beyond this season? It's got to be a possibility unless he's pretty much thinks he and his agent and contacts and family and whatever think he's pretty much assured of a first round pick, or certainly a high pick. But as I say, having come to prominence so quickly, it is possible you can drop off quickly as well, because he's not got as big a body of evidence as other candidates in this class. So a bad performance would hurt him more, but good performances, if he continues to show them, that people are going to start thinking, right, what are his physical talents? How is he going to do at combine? Pro days will be really important for him. But at the moment, he's got himself right into first round contention. Right, fourth guy up, and he was number 3 last year, so last month, sorry. So a slight drop for Garrett Nussmeier, the senior at LSU. And personally, I have always remained unconvinced about Nussmeier, or so far I am. He is still playing pretty well this season, although he has already thrown 3 picks this term. And whilst he drops one place from 3 to 4 on my current list, that could still see him get a round 1 pick in 2026. Like I say, when I evaluate these people or give comment on them, it's never personal. It's purely business not in the Godfather sense. I hasten to add. Um, but some players take your eye and some players don't. And Nusma has never really got my attention as screaming out at me as a top prospect. Um, but yeah, he's still doing pretty well and probably on course for round 1 consideration. Right, so what am I on? My 5th guy now, who was number 9 last time, so another one who's had a good month and got himself into first round territory, and that's John Mattia, the junior at Oklahoma. Mattia's been delivering at the higher level for the Sooners, having moved over. He was at Washington State, and then went to, and he's then gone from there to follow his head coach at Oklahoma. Sorry. Um, And he's had a good start for them, which sees him jump 4 spots and into round 1 territory. But he has just had hand surgery on his throwing hand, which is keeping him out of action for at least a couple of weeks, maybe longer. So how he recovers from that and comes back from that could actually turn into a positive. If he gets back quickly and plays well, then it's funny, this world of draft evaluation. People will see that as good good physical and mental toughness and wanting to get back into the fray and to recover from an injury quickly. So we'll see how he comes back from an injury. But right now he's out of action. But he's had a good September, and that's moved him into the top 5 and possible round 1 consideration. Right. So now let's drop down into day 2. And a guy who has dropped down into day 2 and is now number 6 on my list from number 4 is Cade Klubnik, the senior at Clemson. Drops a couple of spots, and then doing so drops out around 1 for me right now. His numbers are down on last season all around, and throwing 4 picks in 4 games will certainly raise concerns for NFL scouts. He's on the slide, and he needs to turn this around in October, or his descent down draft boards could well accelerate. Next up is another new guy, Ty Simpson, the junior at Alabama. Any quarterback from Alabama is operating in plain view of pretty much everybody. And after an average season opening performance against Florida State, Simpson is now playing really well, most notably in leading Bama to a huge win over Georgia. His passer rating and completion percentage rank him second behind only Dante Moore of those on this list as a combined measure. And he has not thrown any picks yet either. Looking at film of that Georgia game, there is plenty of highly accurate short to intermediate stuff from Simpson, but whether he has the same velocity and arm strength of others in his class remains to be seen. But it's certainly one whose stock is currently on the rise. All right, more coffee. Before I get to the 8th guy who drops 1 spot, and that's Sam Levitt, a sophomore at Arizona State. And as sort of that indicates, Levitt's doing okay now, but not doing enough to rise up draft boards. And he's another who's thrown 3 picks earlier this season, which is a worry. So he needs to eradicate those errors to maintain his current position, or he could start to drop even further. But he's not dropped as far as Drew Allard, who was number 2 on my list at the start of the season. So yeah, Allah's had a pretty bad month to be honest, and he needs to correct that pretty quickly, or he's going to drop like a stone through this class. Um, eight now. Oh, sorry, the next guy up is Carson Beck. This is the last of the guys I've got in day two at the moment. Beck drops a couple of spots and is in danger of dropping further. And one thing is continuing to play Beck, and that's picks. They were his undoing at Georgia in high-profile games, and he's added three more early in his time as a Hurricane. Unless he stops making these bad errors, he's going to struggle to get an early draft pick, and that could even get worse for him. So he's on a big slide at the moment. So ones that were in my original list and have now sort of not in day two, and there's one other new guy I want to mention, but dropping into day three, or possibly worse, is Arch Manning, a sophomore at Texas. You know, he's just had an awful month. Let's be honest. He's had one or two decent performances against poorer opposition, but it's not been a good month for Manning, and he's got to be looking at. As I hinted in my first piece on this class, he's inconsistent. I always felt his position on high on draft boards had as much to do with the expectancy of a Manning and his actual performance. So far, he has two good games and two bad ones, but the really bad one came against Ohio State, and that has hurt him badly in terms of draft stock. He now needs a couple of strong performances against top opposition and to show greater consistency if he's to start climbing back up draft boards. But as it stands, he could well be better off staying at Texas beyond 2026. Next guy up, excuse me. The last of the new guys in this list, Josh Hoover, a junior at TCU. Hoover is putting up some good numbers so far this season, and that is getting him noticed. 11 touchdowns in 4 games and a good completion percentage and passer rating being among them. He does have gunslinger tendencies that allow him to make big plays, but 4 picks is the flip side of those tendencies, and he had 11 last season. So to be any more than a speculative mid-rounder, Hoover needs to reduce the picks. Right, next one, Sawyer Robertson. He was my dark horse pre-season. He's still kind of in that position. Outside of 2 sloppy picks and a blowout win over Sanford, Robertson continues to play well, but also continues to be off most scouts' radar right now. In week 8, they face TCU and Josh Hoover, and that game will be big for both quarterbacks in terms of their draft stock. If one of them has outdoes the other one in that game and has a really strong game, that could really boost their prospects. Right, Taylor Green is dropping. Green continues to produce big yardage on the ground, but he has 5 picks in 5 games, and that's hurt him badly in terms of a passer, and has hurt his draft stock too. If you're throwing that amount of picks, you could well struggle. But it's whether somebody sees him in the Anthony Richardson sort of thing, as there's huge potential there that they're willing to take a chance on. But right now, he's going to struggle to get an early draft pick. Then we get to the last one who was on the previous list was Nico Iamaleava, a sophomore at UCLA. He's been poor so far for the Bruins, really poor, which have really probably already ended his hopes of a high draft pick and possibly even getting a draft pick in 2026. So he could well be staying in college beyond this year now. I'm going to quickly go through, having looked at the candidates, let's have a quick look at right now. If the draft was happening tomorrow, who would be the needy teams? There's plenty of quarterbacks out there I've talked about, but who wants them? So let's start with number 1, Cleveland. Having already dumped Joe Flacco to have a look at plan B in Dillon Gabriel. If that does not work out, it will be Shedeur time. And after that, it could be back to the drawing board come the 2026 draft for the Browns. So they're probably the most needy quarterback team at the moment. 2, Pittsburgh. Things are falling into place for Steelers and Aaron Rodgers right now, but he remains a pending free agent, will be yet another year into his 40s at the end of the season. So either a replacement or long-time successor could well be looked at in the next draft. 3, the New York Jets. Justin Fields is doing okay for the Jets, but his team is not. With him being on a 1-year deal, they may well decide to go long-term as part of a rebuild by taking a quarterback early in the 2026 draft. 4, Carolina. Now, the Bryce Young debate is back on again. He got benched last week and he'll be entering the final year of his current rookie deal next season. So, will the Panthers stick or twist on Young come draft time? Well, a lot depends on what he does the rest of this season. 5, the LA Rams. Matt Stafford is another quarterback for whom 2026 will be his last contracted year. So, he's got 1 year after this. So, some future planning in terms of his successor could be on the cards in the 26 draft for the Rams. 6, I've got the Las Vegas Raiders. Geno Smith got a big deal that takes him to 2028, but if he continues to throw picks, the Raiders could well look in a different direction. Brock Bowers and Ashton Jonty will be wanting big deals when their rookie deals run out in 2 to 3 years' time. So they will need to create cap space at some point to build on that the base those two provide in order to have a roster capable of winning titles. So could that mean they go looking for a quarterback? Possibly. 7, the New Orleans Saints. Spencer Rattler is like Justin Fields for the Jets, as he's playing better than the team is. But again, if the team continues to tank, Tyler Shugg may get a shot towards the back end of the season. And if he fails, the Saints might go back and get another option in the 2026 draft. So they're the top 7 I've got. Others I'm going to mention. The New York Jets, well, Jackson Dart has done well in his first game, but we'll see how he goes for the rest of this season before the Giants are going to decide whether they need to go back to the well or not. The Vikings, likewise, with JJ McCarthy, who's essentially in his rookie year. If one or both of those played badly in the second half of the season, replacements could well be sought. And after some cryptic comment the other day, and I've always felt his position might not be as secure as many see it, I'll throw Kyler Murray and the Arizona Cardinals in there. You know, he made a comment about their new training facility and will he be around to see it the other day, which was probably a bit tongue in cheek, and he may not have known the date it was opening, i.e., next season. But if they don't deliver this season and Murray doesn't deliver again, and I say again because I really don't think he's delivered at the level of other, first overall picks, then the question's got to start getting asked there. So that's how I see the quarterback candidature picture and the needy teams as we enter October's college action. So I'll come back in November and update again. See you soon.